In the event we sell Declan Rice this summer, which feels more inevitable now more than ever, who is the perfect player, or perhaps players, to replace him at West Ham United? Well, last week we asked Euro Expert to get his thoughts, and this week we are asking a data genius and analytics expert on their thoughts as well. I called them that. They don't call themselves a data genius and an analytics expert. I call them that. They call themselves Cal and Jack. From Analytics United though, all season we've been working with them over on the Hammers Chat Patreon. They've been providing an insight from a different perspective on every single game as they catch up with Charlie. But for this edition I said, excuse me gentlemen, who should West Ham be targeting this summer? We've got a lot of players coming up. I have not heard of half of them, and there's a couple of players I have heard of. They're fantastic shouts. So you're going to hear from Cal and Jack, and I will catch up with you at the end of the show.
How do West Ham replace Declan Rice? West Ham's captain and leader has been a key player for David Moyes' team, as they've gone on to achieve really successful things in the league and Europe over recent seasons. A final coming up in the UEFA Europa Conference League. And he looks pretty certain to be off this summer, which makes it a big summer of recruitment at West Ham. And recruitment has long been an issue and something that we've spoken about a lot at Analytics United. I'm Jack Alderson and joined by co-founder and top mate of mine, the man behind the data at Analytics United. How's it going, Carl?
Yeah, all good, man. Yeah, all good. I've just realised that I've not had a haircut in so long, and we're starting to look increasingly similar. So this is
dangerous. It's dangerous. It's dangerous. The nerdy twins have arrived to tell you what West Ham should do about the Declan Rice situation. I think immediately after another nerdy ginger has been on this channel talking about what West Ham should do about the Declan Rice situation. Look, it's been a complex one for us to look at. We've both had a real trawl through the data, looked at bits of video. We've looked at lots of players, I think, over the last few months and narrowed it down to a few that we think are good shouts, players that would be able to function within a Moyes context. And that's a really important part of the way that we've looked at this process. We've considered it all from the angle that David Moyes will remain in post as manager. It was very difficult to work out exactly how we do it because obviously there's a little bit of uncertainty at West Ham right now about how the club will move forward beyond this season. But we worked on the basis Moyes is there right now and Moyes will be the manager. There's been no news that he's going to be sacked to this point, and most of the news that's come out, most of the reports that have come out in recent weeks have suggested that he'll be staying in post, and that does affect things a little bit because there's a very clearly defined way of playing and way of setting your team up. We've largely played a 4-2-3-1 under David Moyes over recent seasons, so it generally means that there's going to be two players in that defensive midfield slot at West Ham. And I think the way that we've looked at it, Cal, has really been to say that it's going to be very difficult to capture all of Rice's abilities. I mean, he's a crucial player in this team within just one player, and most of those players, if you were going to find that, are going to be worth a lot of money. And yeah, it probably means you're ending up doing something like a like for like in terms of the finances. Not exactly, of course, but it's going to really decrease the flexibility you have to make other signings from the money that comes in from Rice's sale. And any which way you're almost certainly, or I would say certainly, going to get worse because you're not going to be able to recruit a player as good as Declan Rice to be Declan Rice. So from that perspective, especially given the fact that there were several targets looked at last summer as possible replacements or competition for Thomas Souček, I think we decided that we'd look at it more on the basis that you could split his talents into two different players, and maybe try and cover the role from two new signings in midfield for West Ham. The one player who might be able to do a job on his own that we looked at that might just about fit within the remit of what West Ham could bring in over the summer was Ibrahim Sangare. I'm going to hand over to Cal to talk about him, but I think there's been news about PSG. He signed that new contract with the release clause. It's looked very like setting it all up for a move to a top club, hasn't it, over the last year or so?
Yeah, 100%. And I think this is the first graphic we've got for those of you watching, and I think you'll see just quite how close his his chart is to the edge in all of them, which shows that he's exceptional across the board. And yeah, he's been someone that I think has been linked with a lot of clubs actually for what seems like far too long. But in to be frank, it's probably served him well to stick around in PSV because he's only got better and better. Defensively, he's as reliable as it comes. He's 6'3", but pretty mobile, snaps into tackles, and is so competent at winning that ball back. And then when he does have the ball, he's as capable running with it as he is playing a line breaking pass, which is the sort of skill set that you want. But like Jack's rightly pointed out, these sort of well-rounded, youngish midfield profiles are highly sought after, and there's a rumor that there's a £35 million release clause in Sangare's contract, and the fact that Van Nistelrooy has been sacked has apparently not gone down well with him either. So I imagine he'll be entertaining the idea of a move, and at 35 mil, I would be very surprised if the likes of PSG, Arsenal, who are in the market for a midfielder, Liverpool, who also need a midfielder, are not looking around given his pedigree. And at that point, we just won't be able to compete, really.
So given that, and given that he's probably one of the only players we looked at as an option to be able to capture most, if not all, of what Rice has brought to West Ham over recent seasons, I think the split we looked at was trying to capture Rice's defensive strengths in one player, so more of a screener, more of a number 6, who can keep it tight defensively, especially with West Ham looking to commit both midfielders from that 4-2-3-1 into more advanced positions in possession. So someone who can really sit at the base of that and be very useful in transition defense. And then a player alongside that who would give you some of the same offensive upside as you've got through Thomas Souček, but maybe ameliorate some of the problems he's brought in build-up. Or if you were to continue with the current model, which we've seen recently at West Ham, where Paqueta drops in as more of the build-up guy from the 10 position, and that 8, which has been Souček this season, drives forward and becomes the de facto number 10 in possession. Someone who might be able to contribute with some with goals, but also with some creative play in the final third to allow you to play through the middle of the pitch. Because with Souček being there in that 10 position, it's often forcing West Ham to move most of their attacks out wide, because he's not someone that can drop onto the ball, receive, turn, and pick a defense splitting pass out. So starting with the more screener player, the number 6, the player who's going to be more defensively secure. We'll start with sort of the backup options or the cheaper options that we picked out. The first player we're looking at is Elias Skiri of FC Köln.
Yep. Another player who's been on our radar for a while now, actually. He's really established himself as one of the best defensive midfielders in the Bundesliga. He just got into the team of the season for the Bundesliga in a midfield 2 alongside Bellingham, pipping Joshua Kimmich. So I think that speaks to the quality of the player. And again, given that his contract is set to run out this summer, I think the potential for a bargain is there, but that also means there's going to be a lot of interest. His really biggest skill set is sitting in that 6 role in front of a defense and just mopping up loose balls. I think in terms of his possession adjusted interceptions, I think that's probably his biggest outlier in his data. 8.9 for the season, which is an incredible return on the levels of the likes of Rice. But like I say, for that reason, I think the likes of Milan have been quoted as being interested, Dortmund as well, Frankfurt. And to be fair, if Liverpool are looking to really bolster that midfield and want to try and get some cheap options so they can splurge elsewhere, bringing in someone like Skiri who can fill in that sort of 6 role when Fabinho's not fit might not be the worst idea. I think the one upside on if we were to compare him to Souček, I know that we'll want to play him in the 6, but as you can see, he's a much more able passer as well. When he does win that ball back, he's very capable of driving it forward or playing a much more secure pass inside or to a fullback, whereas we've often seen this season Souček sort of, well, everyone knows that it's not his biggest strength. So I think having that balance there is great, but we've got some other players lined up in terms of real offensive contributors in the final third.
Bayern seem to be interested in Declan Rice, and although this might seem like a bit of a Hail Mary, one of the players that we looked at, because make weights maybe are possible, as one of those more creative outlets, one of those more attacking midfielders who could be partnered with more of a 6 like Skiri, was Ryan Gravenberch. I was kind of surprised by this one. You sent it across the day, and I hadn't thought about it at all. So tell everyone why we should be interested in Ryan.
Yeah, so it's a bit of a funny one because I think obviously at 21 he's still very young, still has a lot of potential, and there was a lot made about him when he was at Ajax, understandably, because he was part of that really exceptional Ajax team that did so well in Europe. Earned himself a big move to Bayern, and since he's been there, he's not really lived up to the hype yet. His minutes have been limited. He's not really broken into the team, which of course the level at Bayern is very high. But I expect that he might be interested in a move this summer, particularly if Bayern were to bring in Rice, who would be another player with whom he'd be competing for minutes in that midfield. So his pathway would be further blocked. And given that if their interest of Rice is genuine, they will be looking to make a move. I think even if we offer to take him on loan with an option to buy, so we don't have to buy it straight away, I think they'll be keen to listen to any sort of offer from us if it sweetens the deal for Rice. And on the flip side, it also means that we don't have to watch Rice play for another Premier League team, which will be the other destination should he not go there. But in terms of what Gravenberch would offer, yeah, he's a real good progressor from deep, very accurate in terms of his passing into the final third, progressive passing, also a very capable carrier of the ball with the ability to play line breaking passes, and then does often pop up in the box as well. So a really nice, well-rounded set for a midfielder who we'd probably be able to deploy in the 6 or an 8 role.
Couple of quick fire ones now because we got the top targets coming up, and we're both really keen actually on the two players that we're going to be mentioning last in this. I think one of them I've been really keen on for a little while now, and another one is someone that's just continuously popped up in every search we've done, really, as the clear and most obvious top target to replace Declan Rice. But let's do this. Let's do some quick fire shouts now. So run us through these, Cal.
Yeah, so first up, we got Mats Wiefer from Feyenoord. Obviously, anyone will have heard about the links of Arne Slot to Tottenham and how good Feyenoord have been. Wiefer has been key in this. I mean, defensively is probably his biggest strength in terms of winning the ball back in midfield. He's leading the league in possession-adjusted interceptions, very good aerially, so you can see how he would fit into this side. I think he would be more of a screener, but he does offer a good progressive passing option as well. He's not afraid to drive forward. And at just 23 years old, I think he's got a really bright future ahead.
That was good. That was quick. Nice.
Slightly more of a prospect shout, I think, but I've been watching a lot of the Under-20 World Cup recently, and this is one player that's really shone. He was kind of already on my radar. Plays in Argentina, Federico Redondo. He's the son of Fernando Redondo, who was obviously an Argentina international and Real Madrid legend. Wildly heralded as one of the best central defensive midfielders of his generation. And I think his son looks set to carry on in that trajectory. He's not really much of a ball carrier, but I think even if you just watch him for one game, he really has the Busquets about him. The way he sort of carries himself, the way he passes, and the way he gets onto the ball. And at 6'2", he's a real physical specimen at the back as well. So yeah, really high hopes for Redondo. Bit more of a rogue shout, this one. Johnny, he declared for the US men's national team, but has yet to really break into that midfield. Obviously, they have got Tyler Adams, Weston McKennie, Yunus Musa. But I think Johnny will get there eventually. What I really like about him is not only is he a good progressive option in terms of linking midfield into attack, but he really does pop up in the box. At 6'1", he's kind of a slightly more technically capable Souček vibe in terms of he's happy to crash the box, arrive at the far post and poke goals in. But he's also capable of spraying the ball about and driving up the pitch himself. And then he does also win a lot of interceptions in transition defense as well, which is a really nice, versatile package. But I think maybe another year in South America just to really get a feel for whether he can make that transition. But yeah, I think just to say before we move on to our big targets, I think this area of South America, whether it's Argentina, whether it's Brazil, I think there's a lot of value to be had here. We've seen it in even this season with João Gomez and the success he's had at Wolves. Danilo obviously left Palmeiras for Nottingham Forest, both of whom have really taken to the Premier League very well and handled that transition pretty seamlessly into sides that at times this season have looked quite troubled as well. So it's not the easiest place to go. Danilo's shone and so has Gomez, both of whom were, I would say, for those of you that follow AU, you'll know that I've watched a lot of South American football. I would say these two are probably the two of the best top 5 central midfielders of 2022 in South America, both of whom made a move to the Premier League, transitioned nicely, and neither of whom cost more than 20 mil. I think Danilo was about 18 million in pounds and João Gomez even less. So I think, yeah, if we're going to try and look to get value, I think this would be the place that I would like to look, especially with the Brexit rules as well, which there's lots of chopping and changing there. But as we've seen, Brighton recruit from South America a lot, have had great success. Other teams are doing it now, and I think we need to jump on that bandwagon, if you will, and really try and extract some of the value that is there.
On to the top targets now. The first one is a player that I really, really like everything I've seen of. And when you look at what David Moyes wants from that second midfielder, the one that would be next to Declan Rice in a 4-2-3-1, he captures a lot of the things that I think a West Ham team could make use of. And that's Joey Veerman. Are you as high on him as I am? Because I'm very high on this guy.
Yeah, man, he's a great player, and I think your sales pitch over the last 2 weeks has worked, because I'm fully on board for Veerman now. I think he is far and away the best candidate in terms of what we can realistically expect, but also what he can provide for us in terms of that 8 role. I think we've often bemoaned the fact that Souček offers nothing in build up and stagnates a lot of our attacks, but praised him for the fact that he is a genuine goal threat in the opposition box and also defends his own box very well. And in Veerman, you've got all of that and a little bit more. I think what he offers in progression is incredibly impressive. He's always looking to play those line breaking passes, which I think is something that we've lacked on our number 8s recently. But still winning about 63% of his defensive duels, which is just a really nice balanced profile. But then, like I say, he's very, very dangerous in the box, constantly popping up with goals and assists for PSV, and also provides a real set piece threat, which I think is something else that West Ham will be looking to, or should be looking to consider, when they're recruiting for this window and next, given Cresswell has predominantly been our main set piece specialist and he's not getting any younger, and realistically should be phased out of the team fairly soon. So bringing in a player who is good enough to start every game and also capable of taking free kicks, but also getting on the end of them, I think it all just makes sense, really. So yeah, I'm very, very high on Veerman.
On to the last one, and the Declan Rice replacement, are we saying? And we're talking about value in South America, top 5 midfielders. Is this the top 1 midfielder in Brazil, Carl?
For me, yeah, I think so. In terms of how he can transition across the Europe, I genuinely believe that he's ready to make that step probably to a top European side now. Genuinely, I think the way, for his age, he can play in the 6 or the 8. He's so confident on the ball, so press resistant, or invites the press, in fact, because he knows in his mind that opens space in behind, and then he's very capable of exploiting it, whether that's playing a 1-2 with a partner, running into the space to then receive the ball in his stride and carry forward. Anyone listening to that should be hearing the similarities between Rice and the way that he plays what seems to be a very simple pass, but knows that within 2 seconds he's going to be driving forward because he's created the space by baiting the press. I think that is just incredible for someone of his age. Defensively, he snaps into challenges. He's an incredible counter presser. So in terms of helping us to maintain pressure against lesser teams, which is something we've also struggled with on occasion, I think him being able to harass the opposition when a pass might go awry and win it back himself, and then be able to do something with it is a real genuine exciting talent. And I think I'd be amazed if he's not on the radar of other clubs, but I would be on the phone already tapping up the agent and seeing whether he'd be interested, because I have spent a lot of time looking for people who I think could genuinely step into the shoes of Rice. As we've said, if you don't have £100 million to spend on one player, it's going to be difficult to replace him. But I think if you bring this guy in and put faith in him, I genuinely believe that he will develop and deliver.
Yeah, and when you were talking about kind of splitting what you want from a player and looking for a top 6 who is strong in the tackle and can play the ball forwards, I mean, if you're just looking at that that graphic, the defensive duel percentage should be something that is lighting up in bright green, ding ding ding. That's exactly the kind of thing you're looking for. So those are the players that I think we're very keen on. One player that I'm going to throw in, because I just always throw him in where I can, is Baptiste Santamaria. I've loved him for years, and And Leslie Ugachukwu looks like he's going to step up and take that role at Rennes. Some would argue he should be the target that we should be going for. But if you're looking for a ready-made player, tall, good in the air, can pass forwards, keep it locked down as a 6, he seems like a decent option, another value option that wouldn't cost a huge amount of money. 28 now, give you a good few years. And given that we've looked at a lot of younger players in this segment, a lot of players that could step up and be really elite talents in the future, if you were looking for maybe one guy who's been around the block, done it at a high level, and has always been a good player, Santa Maria is an interesting option from that perspective, I think. But there you go. Those are our shouts to replace Declan Rice. It's going to be difficult. I can almost guarantee that West Ham will do it wrong. So, yeah, we'll be back to do something like this next summer, I'm sure. Cheers.
Did not consider Shaqiri. What a fantastic shout that is. Gavin Burke would love him at West Ham. Shaqiri, thinking about it, makes sense. South Americans, never heard of them. I've seen one of them, the obvious one, doing the rounds on social media. Never heard of them. But that's why I love Jack and Cal over at Analytics United. The link to all their social media is in the description of this video, as well as the pinned comments as well. So do go and give the Analytics United boys a follow, give them the support. And like I said, we do work with them over on our Hammers Chat Patreon. We have done throughout the season. Fantastic content. If you don't believe me, check the comments. There will be patrons saying, love their show with Charlie over on Patreon. But yeah, give them a follow on Analytics United. Thank you, Cal. Thank you, Jack. Data genius. Analyst expert. My claim. I think they've justified it. But anyway, if you've enjoyed this video and their recommendations, please do drop a like on the video by clicking thumbs up. If you're new to Hammers Chat, subscribe around here. And like I said, get following the Analytics United boys. And I'll catch up with you tomorrow.